Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So today I'm doing a classic album inspection. On this day, today, 45 years ago, Rush released their seminal 2112 album. So this is such an important album for Rush. They had their backs against the wall. What had happened was, released their first album, did wellish, start to get a bit of a following. I did a lot better on the Fly By Night album, got some good tour support, built up their sales. But they came unstuck with the Caress of Steel album. The sales dropped they halved. And the long conceptual pieces hadn't quite worked really. The Phantom of Lambeth and the Necromancer. Their record company Mercury were toying with dropping them, but their manager Ray Daniels went to the office of Mercury to the bosses and just said, look, stick with them. They're working up some great stuff for their next album. The record company wanted them to go back to the kind of more Led Zeppelin-y type of thing they did on the first two albums. So what happens, they're writing the tracks, they're actually writing the songs for this acoustic guitars backstage, sound check and a little pig nose amp. And what Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson did was, as Neil Peart wrote lyrics, they set music to the lyrics. And I think this is where the cohesiveness of the track, the made up side one, comes together. So they're inspired by the lyrics. So what's this about? I'll just quickly go through this. Like on the front cover you've got this red star, and on the back the red star man, like that. So what this signifies, I'm just going to read it here. On the album art, the collectivist mentality is depicted as the red star of the Solar Federation. Okay, so in the year 2112 there's a federation actually run by monks. It's, I suppose you would say it's more like a communist collectivist society. And basically the main protagonist finds a guitar, discovers music, the priests want to ban it, but he fights back and the individual wins the day. So where does this concept of the individual come from? Okay, so you have to bear with me now, but Neil Peart later realised that this was influenced by a book called Anthem, which was a sci-fi novel, a little known sci-fi novel at the time, I guess, by an author called Ayn Rand. Okay, so later on, after writing this, Ayn Rand would write a best-selling novel called The Fountainhead. And The Fountainhead is basically, it's about an architect called Howard Rourke. But he believes in individual expression in his architectural design. He doesn't want to do architecture by committee or have influence, of councillors or government and so on. This was adapted into a film in 1949 starring Gary Cooper and Patricia Neal. And basically, at one point actually in the film, Howard Rourke, Gary Cooper, is using a pneumatic drill going into concrete down by his crotch area. This is when Patricia Neal first sees him, and later on he will erect a huge skyscraper. Anyway, make of that what you will. But the idea is it celebrates the individual over the collective of society. Okay, so this is called individualism or determinism. Politically, we would find it in monetarist theory, in economics, and Neo Conservatism. Okay, so we're starting to get a little heavy here. It gets a little heavier. There is a BBC documentary maker I saw. He does a lot of works on BBC Three. They don't sell them on regular BBC now. I'm forgetting his name, it escapes me, but they're awesome. But he did a whole one with Ayn Rand as a theme. And back in the 1950s, Ayn Rand would meet in an apartment in New York. Don't know whose apartment it was, I can't remember, but various people, like-minded people, would meet there and they would discuss ideas and the types of, political thoughts we're thinking about here. And one of those was Alan Greenspan, and Alan Greenspan later became the head of the Federal Reserve, with big influence in the 1970s in the Reagan era. And that's when the economics of America changes dramatically, and also the economics in our country under Margaret Thatcher. So you can see how Ayn Rand is actually incredibly influential. She also wrote a book called Atlas Shrugged, which is kind of beloved, one of those beloved books, along with The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, of people who work in the stock markets. There's actually a film by alt-righters in America based on Atlas Shrugged. And again, it's all about the individual triumphing. Okay, so this would get sort of Neil Peart into trouble with the enemy back in the late 70s. He also did lyrics for a song called The Trees, which is seen as an anti-communist, anti-trade union parable. I kind of see the lyrics to The Trees as basically this side thinks this side thinks this, and they need to kind of meet in the middle and compromise. But anyway, so that's the beef sort of context of this, the story. I'll not go any more into the story. So you opens with 2112 Suite, which is 20 minutes and 33 seconds. This is 6 pieces interlocking, and it's one side of music. You've got the overture, which starts off, and that introduces thematic motifs that will appear throughout the whole piece, and then it goes into the Temples of Syrinx, one of the most famous tracks by Rush. So this introduces the gallop. What came first, Achilles' Last Stand, all this, I'm not sure. You'd have to check when Presence comes out, but dun 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 dun. And the next year it would be used by UFO and Lights Out. That would influence Iron Maiden, and that's probably every other Iron Maiden song using a gallop. For the uninitiated, people say that a gallop is a triplet. It's not. It's a eighth note and then 2/16, one and a 2 and a 3, dun 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 dun, like that. Triplets are da 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 da. Okay, that's the music theory waffle out of the way. Yeah, that uses the gallop. It's got a great vocal by Geddy, great guitar work by Alex Lifeson. Then the next track's Discovery. This is really interesting. So the protagonist finds the guitar, it's out of tune, he tunes it up. Obviously it's Alex Lifeson playing the part, and then Alex Lifeson starts picking out chords, and he starts playing some really cool inversions on the G, B and high E. Sort of chord shapes that Pete Townsend would like. And I think there's a little lineage there, you know, think of albums like Quadrophene and Tommy. This would probably be an influence on the band along with their Zeppelin. And also Yes, with their concept albums. And then he goes to a presentation where the main character is trying to present to the priest, but they're saying, no, you can't have this music. You got Oracle the Dream Soliloquy, and it finishes with the grand finale. And these last few pieces have great vocals by Geddy Lee, and go back, and reintroduce the themes that we had in the first overture. So it's a stunning piece of music, side one. I do think Rush topped it on the Hemispheres album with the Cygnus Part 2. I think that's their best long piece. But this didn't set the ball rolling. Obviously, you've got the Phantom of Lamnef on the Carissa Steel album, but this got things better. So basically, the record company, wouldn't have been expecting this, but the album did very well initially. Well enough. I think it sold about 350,000 copies. There were touring bands like UFO and so on. Later down the line, I think it would go triple platinum in the States alone. So it's the second most successful album after Moving Pictures. Initial things as well on this. The drums and bass are obviously as excellent as you expect. Alex Lifeson, his guitar parts are really cleanly played on a Gibson Hollow Body 335. And this is a classic Rush look for a lot of people. Neil with his enormous kit on from the All the World stage cover. I think that's going to auction soon. Geddy with his Rickenbacker bass, giving that high clanky mid. Alex Lifeson with his white 335. And then wearing Komodos on a nice rug. Awesome. Side 2 opens with a passage to Bangkok. So this is a total 3 minutes and 34 seconds, a total different spin from what's gone before. So Rush are really skillful at writing really short, punchy songs that go on a really cool musical journey and lyrical journey. In this instance, basically, it's talking about the whole region on a train journey, I guess, that kind of thing. Travel and where to get the best weed. It's pretty cool, apart from Alex's sort of cheesy pentatonic at the start. But that's a great track, and they used to play it live a lot. I think I saw them play it live back in 2007, I think, 2008. Next up was the Twilight Zone, which I think's an okay track. They like the series The Twilight Zone. Again, it's a short track. All of them are short on side 2, 3 minutes and 17. So it's pretty good, but it's not great. Lessons is the kind of deep cut. This is the track that people wouldn't remember, but it's really good. It's got a really good lyric by Neil Peart, and it's more of a real world lyric, real life lyric, rather than looking at literature or some kind of fantasy element. Rock's really hard. Sorry, just looking at the length again, 3 minutes 50. So kind of drawing back more onto the types of Zeppelin style songs they were doing on the first album and beyond. Then track 4's Tears. This is a ballad. Again, this is my least favourite track. I mean, it's a nice piece of music. It just doesn't do it as much for me. That may be sacrilege, I don't know. And then it finishes on a real storm of Something for Nothing. Again, the length of this, 3 minutes 58. So every track on side 2 was under under 4 minutes. That's so even though Rush did long pieces, they were, you know, totally capable of just doing like a really to the point track. The lyrics on this, again, you can argue, you know, Neil Peart's celebrating individualism in the sense that you can't have something for nothing. It's about working hard and you can't sit there and expect others to do things for you. So on a, you know, you could say as a metaphor, you can't expect society or the nanny state to do stuff. You have to get out there and get it yourself. So yeah, I don't know what people make of that sort of Neil's lyrical themes. I mean, later on, you know, he wrote about a lot of subjects. You know, he's a great documentarian in his lyrics of sort of human issues to me. Like I say, the NME jumped on his back in about 1978, but the NME would have jumped on any band like Rush or a person like Neil Peart because they just hated anything that was not punk basically at that time or new wave. So summing up, I mean, this album basically invents progressive metal. Okay, it's not a heavy metal album, it's a hard rock album, but without this you get no Dream Theater, you get an Operation Mindcrime. I was thinking the Astonishing by Dream Theater is like a, you know, a kind of 2112 type story meets the Hunger Games, isn't it? Really. Fate's Warning, you know, they've done concept albums as well. Symphony X, you know, what's the album? God, I can't remember. Sorry, Iconoclast, for instance. You know, it's a much heavier album than this, but it's a science fiction concept album, or conceptual. Rage for Order by Queensryche's a science, almost not a concept album, but it has conceptual science fiction themes in it. And Dream Theater were a band, you know, side 2 or the second disc of 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence was a 42-minute piece interlocking like Rush. So it's a hugely influential album, and it transcends its genre. You know, Dave Grohl, fans like bands like the Foo Fighters were into it. Alternative rock, Smashing Pumpkins. Billy Corgan's a big Rush fan. And I think the reason for that is Rush, even though they did odd time signatures, they're all virtuosos. I mean, certainly Geddy Lee and Neil Peart are two absolutely top draw technical players. Alex Lifeson, you know, he's technically great, but he always had a more free form, less kind of shreddy approach to me, which worked really well. You know, he was a kind of doing something counter to those two at times, especially in his solos. So you wouldn't think that would appeal to you know, people who play that type of music, but I think it's got its roots in classic rock. And because they're kind of geeks, Rush, I think the geeky high school kid sees something of themselves in Rush, and that's why their appeal was not confined to, you know, several 100,000 or a few million record sales. You know, it went to 50 million. I'm just finally going to check. I just want to check the numbers on this and look at the certifications. And yeah, the United States 3 times platinum. So it sold over time. Initially, you know, it sold about 350,000, but back then that was enough to save their bacon. United Kingdom gold, Canada 200,000. So that's just a few countries. I suspect its worldwide sales for this album are probably 5 million, 6 million. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. 2112, 45 years old. Awesome. Cheers. Thanks so much.